All right. All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming to my class. I'm Warlord Magni, as y'all know, but for those online. And this is on setups and combos. And so today I'm going to be covering a few different aspects about setups and combos. So first off, like, what is the definition of these things? How are they different from one another? And then going through some select combos for single, as well as their setups for the more difficult combos. For single, sword and board, and Florentine. And then lastly, I'll talk a little bit about some drills that we can do. So first off, the difference between a combo and a setup, right? So these two are often correlated together. So the combo itself is the series of shots in rapid succession, okay? That's purely what the combo is. And you can also include some movement with that as well, right? But the setup is more of the strategic part where I'm using my footwork, my positioning, movement, everything to try to get my opponent to move so the combo can work. All right. So if I want, so Bolt, flip your stance. So if I want to throw a money shot, for example, it's really hard for me to get this hip, right? So what I would want to do is I would want to do a setup to get Bolt to switch his stance. So then I can throw the money. Does that make sense? Right? So maybe I would step forward and ideally, Bolt may step back, and then boom, I can throw that that money shot. I mean, that was just a one shot, but for the full setup, if you come actually a little bit further, right, I could throw like this. You'd want to block, step out, and then money, right? For example, that's just something that we could do. So the idea of the setup, right, is to get your opponent to be in a position or a place that the combo will work, because not all combos, or the combos working is pretty dependent on your opponent's position. Okay. Really quick, can somebody check that I'm recording? It's counting. Cool. All right. I just wanted to double check that. Sorry. And then the concept of a combo, right, is the rapid succession. But really what you're trying to do is you're trying to get your opponent's guard to move to a place that you can land, right? So not always the first shot of the combo is supposed to hit, right? So for example, if I want that hip shot, I can throw up here and then down, right? This kind of goes a little bit into my combat theory class where I talk about the different sectants of the body and then throwing cross body shots or from high to low, right? So we're trying to move the guard up high and then strike low, or, strike low, up high, or something like that, right? So the point is to get your opponent's guard to move out of the way so a follow-up shot is actually going to land and get a kill or a wound. Okay, so for single, there is quite a few shots that we can do. Come forward a little bit. So typically, a lot of people will fight sword foot forward, right? So those are going to be the primary combos and setups that I'll be talking about. The setup will come in when they're not in the right stance. Okay, so if they're like this, right? And I recommend if you guys want to practice this out together, go ahead and do it. But so there's a cross money shot. So you cross high and then you strike low, right? If we're set up in this sword foot forward position, right, we can do this almost stagnantly. But if Bolt is switched, right, I need to get that foot forward. So depending on how Bolt responds, if I step forward and Bolt takes the stance switch back, okay, then that's all I have to do. Alternatively, I may need to move over so I can now get access to this hip, right, where I'm still doing the cross throw. Sorry. Right? You are going, not every setup is, A plus B plus C. right? It's not always algorithmic. You sometimes have to see what your opponent, how your opponent's standing, where their guard is, and also how they respond to your advances. Okay. So simple shot, right? Cross money. I can kind of get it. It's really hard for me to get it when switch stance. When you're here, I have to like reach more. But if you're flipped, right, it's much easier for me to get. Additionally, if bolt's in this stance, a really good attack, let's switch sides, is a cross scoop, right? So it's the same shot that we just showed, but we cross, and then I scoop up and I hit the hip, right? And you notice I'm doing the X, right? Up, down, okay? And so whenever you're doing the hip, like the hip shots, the money, or the scoops, it's really dependent on what hip is closest, because that's going to be the easiest to get. If I try to go for this back hip, I'm going to have to dig for it more, okay? All right. Additionally, there is going with the crosses. One of my favorite shots I like to do is a cross stab. So I'll cross. You can either do a high cross or a cross chop, and then come in for the stab. So what you're really relying, this really works if you're fighting a defensive opponent that's not going to strike right away, where, okay, I get them to freeze up, you come up, and then you stab, right? Another simple one is a TikTok. This is not the app, or the social media platform, but really what you're doing is you're going like this. All I'm doing is I'm throwing shots, this back and forth, overhand and underhand chop back and forth. This works really well for people that aren't like super high up or super experienced fighters, because what is happening, what they typically do, is they panic and they begin to throw their guard further and further out, and then eventually you can get them. Another nice thing about the TikTok combo is if you throw it enough, it'll set a timing, and then you can break your own timing, right? Where, okay, boom, 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 down, right? I broke that timing, but also realize that your opponent can use that same strategy against you, okay? What else? Okay, so one of the simplest, let's switch sides. One of the simplest combos is just called the double tap. And really, you know, it's just doing that. That's technically a combo. But with the double tap, you have to, I would always recommend double tapping, especially in single sword, take insurance whenever you're fighting, right? Because if you're fighting and you happen to get like an arm snipe, you now have a split second over them that they can't return, so then just following up with something. But a double tap that I really like, and I've gotten a lot of mileage of, is you throw this like cross, this flat wrap, right? And then I follow up with this chop, okay? So it's boom, boom. And you can also follow it up with a third shot, right? So you go boom, boom, boom. And typically at least one of those is going to land, right? Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'm crossing down, and then I'm going straight into a wrap, and then I slash. So I cross down, it naturally flows into a wrap, and then here I typically will step forward, and I'll just throw a straight chop. So this is, you get 3 shots in really, really fast succession. And additionally, one of the nice things is you're pretty much set up for guard every time. So here, I'm guarded. I'm on the outside lane. So I'm forcing Bolt to really only have access out here or under. Okay. And then if I throw here, this is one of the most like, this is probably the most vulnerable state of the entire combo. But then you just position up, and then you throw this chop. You can throw with your body, right? So my body mechanics class, throw from the hips, or you can just throw from like the chest height using your shoulder to pull back. Okay, that's one of my favorite combos in Sword and Board, and I've really gotten a lot of success out of it. So, and it's also really easy to throw. Okay. Then the last combo that I'll do, this really only works for people that have their guard really far out. And so it's this inside outside. So you throw in and then you throw out. So you have to have the angle right, right? So what I'm doing, position a little bit this way. So I need to come on the inside so I can get here, and then you throw on the outside. If you're able to get this shot, then you know whatever you hit works. But you can also do the reverse where you throw like that. Okay, that takes a lot of like accuracy and practice to get that shot off. Right. It's a slower shot. Because you have to come up and around the guard. It's also harder to get because it's all dependent on the guard position. Okay. So that's what I have for single sword. Now I'm going to transition to Florentine. You don't have another sword. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. So Florentine, I've covered some of these shots already, but Florentine is pretty basic in its combos for the most part. So one of the common combos, right? So we can either be positioned where our feet, where we're not hand matched, or we can hand match. Most of these combinations, come this way a little bit. Most of these combinations don't really matter on the hand match or non-hand match, right? But the simplest one, and I cover this in my basics video for Florentine, is you work on opposite sides. So you throw, right? Where you're just using the alternate hands. And you can either do this on the working on the same side, or you can do it working on opposite sides. Okay. There's also the atomic scissors. It's a high risk, high reward shot, right? For those that don't know what this one is, yeah, you can either throw low, you can throw high, or throw mid. Very rarely have I ever gotten it to work, but when it does, oh man, it's great. All right. Additionally, there is the cross stab, and so there's two variations of this. So you can cross stab high and cross stab low, right? So for this example, I'm going to be opposite footing, and it doesn't matter. You can throw the same combo, hand matched. Just the order that you throw is a little bit different. So typically, what I'll do is I'll throw with this forward hand first. Typically, whenever I'm in Florentine, I always throw the forward hand first, right? Even here, right? I'll throw this forward hand just because it's already out there. You have all of your reach exposed, okay? So throw high, and then you can stab in, right? What I'm doing here is I'm blocking both lanes more or less, and so then I can stab in. Additionally, what I like to do, so if we flip me sides, what I like to do is this low stab, where you're here, you throw, and then you come in, right? Because what you're trying to do, what I talked about, is you're trying to get people's attention away from where you're trying to throw. What's really trying to hit them? Up high, and then you come in low, right? All of their attention is up here with this first shot, okay? So those are the two variations, and depending on what foot is forward, that's typically the shot that you're going to throw first, okay? All right. Now, I also have drop stab in In Florentine, there's a lot of stabbing because it's one of the easiest things to do because there's all of this area. So what I like to do with this drop stab is come a little bit forward, is I'll start here and I'll throw high, or sorry, no, I'll throw low. And so what you're trying to do is your opponent will typically block, and then I throw up, throw the stab in. This is a little bit of a level change, so be careful when you throw your body forward. You can hurt yourself. Again, check out my body mechanics video on that. But you throw down, and you step in. You can also throw the same shot without actually throwing the second or the first shot, where you're using a fake to bring and open up. Okay, so that's the drop stab. Again, now going away from stabs, we can begin to think about that X formation shot where I can throw high and then throw a scoop up, right? So, boom. I'm better doing it with my right hand just because that's my dominant hand, where I throw and then scoop up. Again, I'm getting their attention to go away from my equipment or from the real shot. And then since Florentine, you're not always fighting Florentine fighters, you're often fighting board fighters. So with Bolt, you can grab your shield. These are some common shots that we can do to work against board fighters. So, actually, I'm going to flip you sides since you're a right-handed boarder. Again, this will work whether or not you're fighting a right-handed boardman or a left-handed board person. Okay, so I can throw high, right? And what's happening is Bolt will typically move their board up, or they'll rotate this way, and then you stab in, right? So the entire purpose is to get that board to move, and you actually have to threat, right? You can't just be like, I'm going to throw here. No, you need to throw to get them to really move that board. Sometimes what'll be nice is if you throw a little bit of footwork into it, where I step and then I throw that stab. And this will work even pretty well too if Bolt moves with it. Boom. Right? If Bolt is a lefty board, it's the same exact thing. I just now have to flip up, stab in. Okay? This also works as well, but now I'm actually trying to get that shoulder. So if I want to get that shoulder slot, what I'll typically do is I'll throw to get the board, and I'll throw that chop shot. And again, you can work a little bit with the movement where I'm here and I'll throw. It's often hard to get that board if you're fighting somebody that's taller than you. So what you may want to do is you throw low to get them to bend down into it, or if you do a little hop with it as well. Okay? All right. Now, there's also the hip scoop that you can add with this, doing a chop hip scoop. So, again, or a chop money. It all depends on what hip is forward, okay? So, with Bolt's position, I'm going to throw the money shot, right? This is the money. So what I'll do is I'm here. Oop, sorry, people. So I'm here, and I'll throw that scoop. Or if we flip it, right, so you flip your stance. So now I throw this shot, and then I am supposed to be scooping in. Again, you can always integrate a little bit of movement with this, where you throw in, or you can do it on the other side, over, okay? And so the setups for a lot of these shots with Florentine isn't as sensitive because, well, you have two sticks, right? But when you're fighting against a sword and border, if you want to get that money shot or that hip scoop, you need to move or throw some bleeder shots to get your opponent to move or come into the position that you want them to. Does that make sense? Okay. The last one for Florentine against the Sword and Border is you do a leg shoulder slot. So you're here, you throw the leg, and only do this for, this really only works for people that will take the knee. So you throw the shot, and then you throw, right? So you throw that second follow-up shot on that shoulder. Let's flip it. Because as they're coming down, you're getting a height advantage over here, right? Boom. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to hit you in the head. Right? So then boom. Or you can throw it here. It's harder. Yeah, I need boom. Yeah. Right. Always be conscientious about throwing leg shots, because what you're often going to do, or people will do, is they'll bend into it. And when you bend, you're exposing your back or you're exposing your arm more than you need to. Okay. So those are Florentine. And so finally, we have Sword and Board. So Sword and Board has a bunch of different variations on their combos. And a lot of the combos that you're going to have accessible to you is dependent on what type of board you have. So I have a punch board, so this gives me the most amount of mobility, right? So I'm going to be able to do dark sides really easy. But if you have a strap shield, especially a low strap, I don't have it here, but mostly for low straps, you typically can't move it that much. So for a dark side, this may be the best option that you'll have. Okay, like going this height in that sense, right? Whereas with my punch shield, I can actually chop that shoulder if I wanted to. Okay, so since I've already talked about dark sides, so let's start with the dark side combo. A lot of people will just throw the dark side shot. Well, they'll just, don't drop your sword. Where they'll just throw, right? But you can, just throwing this one shot isn't always going to work. So what I'll do is you can throw high, right? And what you're doing is you're getting them to move. Dark sides work the best as a counter for people that like to high cross, right? So you want to instigate a high cross, so either throwing like that and then following, or do a high cross to get people to high cross, and then you throw. Okay? Once people get used to the high cross or to the dark side, what I like to do as well is, this isn't really a combo, but kind of, it's tricksy, where, you know, I can throw this dark side, boom, right? Bolt actually didn't know what I was going to do there.
No, I had no idea.
Yeah. Where if I'm here, I have a lot of potential to go anywhere, right? If I'm here, oh, I see an opening on this side, then I can still follow up. Or if I need to go for a block, I can block, or I can throw the chop. All right. There's this other shot, which I'm going to show you on this way. It's called Dark Money. And so it's a dark side with a money shot. Yeah. So bring that hip forward. So I'm going to do it this way, and then I'm going to reverse it and do it on the same side. So you dark side, and then you dip down into a money shot. So boom, and again, you can do a starting shot. You throw, boom, where we set up, right? And when you throw movement into any of these combos, you're going to sell it more, right? So integrate your movement with these combos. So you can throw high, you know, to initiate the dark side, get them to throw, boom, boom. And all I'm doing is I'm taking this step forward to throw the money, right? And since I'm already over here, it's really easy to throw that dark side, that dark money. A simpler version of this is the drop money, where there's a lot of money involved in sword and board, obviously. Where this is kind of a trippy shot to see, where all I'm doing is I'm going to be moving in this plane into the board side. So I can throw and move in. And so what's really selling this combo is the move into the board side, because typically people will move in and then you can throw the board. And in this position, I'm actually pretty safe. So if we reverse it, just so people can see what I'm doing, I throw and in. You can even sometimes get pretty good work on it if you're just here. And what you're trying to do, again, is this movement is trying to get your opponent to move that board and rotate. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to slide into the plane of the board right here to get that body shot. No. So, right, so we're here, and I'm coming in like this. Okay? So, just to show them one more time from this angle, boom, boom, right? Or you can also throw the chop where, like that. The dynamic movement really helps you to get them to move. All right, what else we got? We also have the AK-47. This is a money shot as well. This is from Delos, from where is it? CK out in Austin, where this is a really famous shot where you throw and then you money, right? So it's just a straight chop and then money. That's it. That's the whole AK-47. It's really simple, but man, it works great. All right, what else we got? The last money shot that I'm going to talk about is Nip's money. So Nip is a warlord out in Crystal Groves. Really, really amazing warlord and fighter. Sword knight as well. And he came up with this really, really great combo. And so what it starts out as, and this plays to your opponent a little bit, where you're here in sword and board, and you try to throw this hip. Once you get this hip shot, you get your opponent to adjust to it. They begin to drop. So you throw, and then you get that shoulder. All right? That's not, I said money. We haven't thrown money yet. So this combo typically works in a few succession. So you throw, boom, and now they're adjusted to this side, and then you throw low. So let's flip. So I throw the hip, I throw the follow-up shoulder slot, and then I throw down. Sorry, everybody that I hit. Right, so boom, boom, boom. Right, but the really nice part about this shot is once people get adjusted to that hip, you go boom, boom, up, down. Right, so you can play with it and do a multitude of fakes. And so this is really nice as well because you're doing level changes in the sword and board, and so it's harder for people to predict where the shot is coming from. All right. Additionally, there's the pocket stab I really like to do. This is probably one of my favorite shots in sword and board. It's incredibly hard to get off. And so what the pocket stab is I'm trying to get this shoulder. So to get that shoulder, what you typically have to do is you have to throw hot out here to get your opponent to come, and then you have to stab. You're gonna hit people in the face. You're gonna do it. So be careful. Or get really good with like your throwing accuracy so you don't hurt people. If you fight, right, so you throw over, you can either throw this scoop down and then do the pocket stab in. It also works if they're flip sides, so if you flip, but it's going to be a lot harder to get that shoulder, so you're going to have to work much harder to get that stab, and it's also going to be more likely to glance off their shoulder. This shot also works really well on lefties, but the geometry is a bit different. Instead of having to throw across, you have to throw down and then stab in, where you want their guard to drop down so you can get that stab. Since it's also on the same side, it's nice. You can also do a little bit of footwork integration, and you come in offline to get that stab. The last two for sword and board. So there's the double leg. I don't think people do double legs enough in sword and board. It's a very viable shot, and it's a legal kill. Just people don't like it because it's like, fight me up top, man. Come on, bro. But whatever. Right, so for the double leg, you want to go for the leg that's closest to you, and then you follow up. Boom. Right? If you try to do it this way, you are now exposed more. If you flip sides, you flip stances, you now have to come from an opposite direction. So I'll typically take a movement with the shot, right? Just because when Bolt is in the sword foot forward position, both feet, I can also do the step, but I don't have to move as far. Okay. The last shot that I'm going to talk about for sword and board is the fade chop. So this is a really good, I wouldn't really call this a combo, but this is a great disengagement tool where you're fighting and you're in a bad space. And so you go offline, you step offline, and you get that shoulder. This works really well if your opponent is board foot forward, right? So if we're in this A range, whatever's happening, I can step out, I throw this shot, I get this board shoulder. It's sometimes hard to get, but when it works really well. Okay. For fighting Florentine fighters, you can pick up my sword. For fighting Florentine fighters, you can do a variety of different things. What I typically recommend is trying to take them down to a single sword. So you throw, that inside chop, almost like a dark side, and then you follow up, right? You have to be really careful because the dynamic is different when you're fighting Florentine versus sword and board, because they have way more offense than you have. And so if you get choked up, right, even though you take one arm, they still have another arm to hit you. So typically what I like to do is I'll throw money shots or throw scoops to get underneath the guard, right? So I just do that simple X pattern where up, boom, and down. Or close. So those are typically what I recommend for fighting sword and board versus Florentine. So lastly, I'm going to talk about drills. So for drills, I think the best recommendation for combos is just doing, I really need to come up with a name for this, but going through the sectants of doing the double tap combo. So you go 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, 1-4, so on and so forth. And then once you get all the way to 1-6, you do 2-1, 2-2, 2, all the way through. If you mess up, start all over again.
Shot clocking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Clock.
Yeah. Shot clocking. Thank you, Bolt. So shot clocking is, I think, one of the best tools because you're going to build that muscle memory to do any of those shots at any point in time. For doing any of the combos that I talked about today, just run through them with a buddy or with a Pel. Often I recommend starting things out at like 25%. Start things slow, right? If I'm not super good at doing a level change, right? If I want to do the dark money, for example, I know you're not a sword board, but if I want to do the dark money, I boom, boom, do the step really slowly, and then build up to where you can actually throw it at full speed. Don't just go at full speed. That's how you hurt yourself. Injury is bad. Additionally, I think for the last drill that you can do, I think block striking is a great starting tool for those that are more or less beginning and trying to learn how to defend and block and throw multiple shots at the same time. Where the block strike, right, you're here, somebody throws, and then your opponent throws back, and then you just go back and forth. Well, it's supposed to be a rhythm.
Oh, rhythm. Okay.
Yeah, right. Boom, boom. You're supposed to defend, right? And you're not just all throwing these crosses. You need to throw, hip shots, shoulder slots, so on and so forth. That also helps you build that muscle memory aside from clocking. Shot clocking. There we go. All right. Well, that's all the material I have for today. Thank you so much for all your time and attention, and I look forward to seeing you guys at the next workshop on my Newb to Warlord series. Thanks, guys.